Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this Rolex Certified Pre-Owned Oyster Perpetual Cosmograph Daytona. So this is an RCPO and one of the rarest you'll ever encounter. We are talking 5-digit Zenith-powered white gold factory strap clasp gem set dial. In fact, it is a diamond paved, hand-engraved white gold dial with hour indices that are made of white gold and capped with blue sapphires. This is one of the off-catalog offerings that Rolex periodically makes available to special clients and dealers. So if you haven't seen one of these before, there's a reason for that. Now, this is reference 16519 PAV SAP DB. Mid-U serial number. So probably at the end of 1997, beginning of 1998, this would have been made. The clasp is stamped Z, which codes for 1997, and that has a retail date in 1999. So these things were slow going. Few people knew about them, so sales were not brisk, and they were very, very expensive and exclusive to match. 40 millimeters in diameter, 12.3 millimeters thick in white gold, really gray gold, more on that in a moment. 47.3 from lug to lug, and then 20 millimeters is the spacing between the lugs. I'll throw this on my wrist and I'll remove my glove temporarily just so you can see my wrist. But you can see that when the watch is not on a bracelet, it's a lot more compact across the wrist. This wears beautifully. And you can see that on my wrist is 16 centimeters circumference. This watch is not challenging either side. No lug overlap, even in the over-the-top shot, which exaggerates the width of the watch. Down the barrel, which is always the definitive angle when you're looking at a watch on your own wrist. If you don't have a mirror, this is it. You can see this watch would work on wrists as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. Women can and will wear this watch successfully. Low, flat, sloped, it'll slide underneath any kind of a dress cuff. Bring back my glove and we will handle the watch and show it in greater detail. Okay, just to keep Rolex happy. Two gloves again. Now the watch features a Rolex factory strap. Of course, this is RCPO, so all original Rolex parts, everything is factory. It's authenticated by Rolex, it's warranted by Rolex. To the extent that any watchmaking is necessary, it will be Rolex certified watchmakers. Moving inside the clasp, you can see all the details you need. You can see it corresponds to the 16519 generation of the watch. There's your Z stamp down at the bottom that codes for 1997. And it is a gray gold clasp to match a gray gold watch. Gray gold is a type of white gold that is not rhodium plated and needs none. So if you scratch it, it's the same color underneath, and it never needs to be replated with ultra white rhodium. It already has intrinsically a white hue to it. So you can see there's a clamshell lock to keep it closed, and then we have several different pairs of divots drilled inside the clasp, so you can change the anchoring point of the strap by moving the spring bar. And there are several different straps available, so if this one isn't the right length for you, we'll make sure you have the right one. The strap's a lovely bright blue gloss finish. We have medium rectangular scale alligator leather, symmetrical scales, very high quality cut. In profile, you can see it's been cut and blue lacquered to add refinement. These factory strap-equipped Daytonas have this little plug that sits under the bezel between the lugs to make sure there's no gap between strap and case, so it integrates them very nicely. Gray gold, once again, the Daytona case, always a little bit more complex and also a bit more compact than the other 40 millimeter Rolex sports watches. It's a handsome look that has more in common with the Yachtmaster than the Subs, the Sea Dwellers, or the later Deep Seas. Again, very little here in common with the Divers, the GMT, a whole lot in common with the dress watches and the Yachtmaster. It's very elegant. Screw down crowns, oyster case back, 100-meter water resistance. You see we've got a triplock crown in gold. You know that because there's 3 dots, but the center dot is the largest. The bezel, also in white gold, featuring a tachymetric scale, so you can use the chronograph to gauge the speed of an object over typically a kilometer, so a race car, for example. Column wheel, and in this case, it's going to be a lateral clutch because this is the Zenith-based caliber 4030, based on the Zenith El Primero, but with a 4 hertz beat rate rather than 5 for absolute reliability. Rolex is more conservative than conservative, so although the Zenith is renowned for its reliability, Rolex pegged back the beat rate even a little bit more to keep Rolex standards of reliability in play, and they take no chances. The column wheel on an El Primero and also on the El Primero-based Rolex 4030 is exemplary. Superb feel, super crisp. Column wheel with the lateral clutch, traditional chronograph construction. But we're burying the lead here. We can see as we get closer that the dial is fully engraved. And what's interesting is that all of the diamonds are set so that their volume faces inward. They're all flat on top. So the side facing you is completely flat and it's all flush to the dial. It is a fascinating way of assembling a gem set dial. This is a gem paved dial. So we have all those brilliant cut diamonds, but the facets are facing inward and you have these perfectly flush circular faces that are pointing outward. Now, if you look around the edges of the registers, you could see the engraving around the registers. So this dial is made of solid gold. It is burnished to hold the gems in place and then engraved to add nuance on the remaining free surface of the gold. Then we have white gold indices mounting blue sapphires, which are beautifully faceted, and we have Arabic numerals at 15, 30, and 45 minutes on the dial. White gold, Rolex crown. So here we have gold indices, gold hands, gold logo, and a solid gold gem set dial. And at Rolex, the gem set watches are the ones that are still laboriously handmade, really the only Rolex watches that are still largely handmade. So this dial would have required an enormous amount of attention from gem setting and engraving specialists. You can also see it's a much cleaner dial. Rather than all the text that populates a conventional Rolex dial, this one only has one piece of text, the name of the company, so it's a very different look. Inside, you've got that Rolex caliber 4030, and I don't want you to think that Rolex just stuffed an El Primero in there and removed the date. They make quite a few changes. First, diminishing the beat rate from 10 beats per second to 8. Rolex wanted it to be more reliable even than a standard El Primero. Super conservative, but it pays off in the long run. And still 31 jewel, but the big change is to the winding system, which now includes the Rolex perpetual winding system, eliminating the bidirectional system of the El Primero with its many small fidgety springs. The Rolex system is more robust. It also winds bidirectionally, but it is a Rolex winding system, not the Zenith one in here. Also, Rolex changes the regulator. The Zenith has a mobile stud index. The Rolex version of it has a fixed index and a free sprung balance with Rolex Micro Stella adjustment bolts. Also, the flat hairspring of the El Primero is swapped out for an overcoil, and the watch has a COSC Chronometer certification, or I should say the movement within the watch is adjusted in 5 positions and receives the COSC Chronometer certification. Chronometer certification through the COSC is always on the movement. Also worth mentioning is that it gets a little bit of a boost from the lack of a date. So power reserve goes from 50 to 52 on a standard El Primero to 52 to 54 on the Rolex version of the movement. And so really does make the movement Rolex's own. It's important to remember that back in the 90s, the construction of these watches was always constrained by Zenith's production capacity, which was very limited, as Zenith is a much smaller company even today than Rolex. Zenith had to provide movements for its own watches. It had to provide movements for its other customers that were not Rolex, and then some of its movements were not chronographs, like the Elite, for example. So if Zenith had capacity of 25,000 movements a year, a small portion of that would go to other customers than Rolex, and then of course to Zenith's own watches. So this era of Rolex Daytona, made from 1988 to 1999, was constrained in number by Zenith's production capacity, not Rolex's. That keeps them exclusive, but it becomes more exclusive still as the white gold version of the Zenith-based Daytona didn't become available until 1997, and well, the watch was only made until 1999 with the Zenith movement, so you get a sense of how rare a white gold El Primero powered Daytona is. Now you add this extraordinary dial, and we are talking something that is scarcer than hen's teeth on a rooster, if you will. Super exclusive, the ultimate capstone to any Daytona collection. If you love this watch, which is automatic winding and lovable in every regard, crisp to operate, rare, alluring, and remarkably handmade for a Rolex timepiece, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details. Rolex Certified Pre-Owned watches are backed and authenticated by Rolex. Should any reconditioning be necessary, it will be to a Rolex Certified standard, and any parts invested, Rolex Factory Original. Should the initial retail box, paper, and accessory set still accompany the watch, it will be included with the sale. But no matter what, a certified pre-owned box and paper set starts with an outer box, a leatherette travel pouch with suede lining, a warranty card that embodies the 2-year globally valid Rolex-backed warranty. Note, this is not a retail warranty, but backed by Rolex and actionable at any of its authorized points of sales and service. A leatherette wallet includes the warranty terms and conditions manual. A holographic hang tag marks this as a certified pre-owned Rolex watch, and a manual details Rolex's values as a company. The certified pre-owned program: care, feeding, service, and use of your Rolex, locations of points of sales and service, and details of Rolex.com. Rolex Certified Pre-Owned watches are backed only by Rolex.